Jason started waking up early every day. He walked through the palace halls, gardens, and training yards. He watched everything. The guards began to notice him more. He saw how he moved, how he stood still like a soldier. One guard told another, and soon many were talking about the queen's husband. Lyraea sat in her throne room listening to the quiet talk among the nobles. Some laughed at the idea that a human could be a warrior. Others were not so sure. Lyraea said nothing, but she began to watch Jason more. One afternoon, 2 guards trained in the yard. Jason stood nearby, arms crossed. A young soldier lost his balance and fell hard. His weapon flew and landed near Jason. Jason picked it up. Without thinking, he copied the training moves, clean and perfect. He returned the weapon and walked away. The guards were shocked. Later that day, one of the Queen's top officers asked Jason to join a small training match. Jason said no. He smiled a little and said, "I'm only here to learn." The officer looked at him with narrow eyes, but walked away. That night, Lyraea asked Jason to walk with her. They walked through the quiet halls. "People say you fight well," she said. Jason looked forward. "People say many things, but you do know how to fight," she said. "I know how to protect," he replied. She looked at him, but said nothing more. 1 week later, a group of rebels sent a threat. They wanted Lyraea to step down. They said she was weak for marrying a human. Lyraea was angry but calm. She sent her guards to find them. The rebels tried to attack the palace during a quiet morning. They used cloaked drones and laser knives. The guards fought back. In the middle of the fight, Jason appeared. He moved fast, faster than any guard. He dodged blades, kicked down to rebels, and stopped a drone with a sharp metal plate. Lyraea watched from the high window. Jason was fighting like a trained soldier. It's not just trained, but skilled in a way her people had not seen before. When the attack was over, the guards looked at Jason with respect. They had seen his strength. Lyraea came down to meet him. "You could have died," she said. "So could you," Jason answered. She looked at him hard. "You're not just a lab worker. Who are you?" Jason took a deep breath. "Before I lived a quiet life, I was part of something called Project Sentinel. It was a program on Earth. We were trained for many things, to fight, to survive on alien planets, to resist mind tricks. But I left it. I wanted peace." Lyraea was silent. She turned and walked a few steps. Then she said, "You are not what I expected." Jason nodded. "Neither are you." The next day, Lyraea called her guards and advisors. She told them what had happened. Some were angry, some were impressed. She looked at them and said, "He is still my choice. I do not fear his past." After that, things changed. But now the guards greeted him with respect. He helped in small ways, giving advice during drills. He trained with the soldiers during the early hours, never showing off, but always doing well. Lyraea started to see him with new eyes. She saw strength in his silence. She saw calm in his actions. She had picked him because she thought he was weak. But now she was learning the truth. At night, they sometimes spoke for hours. He told her stories of Earth. She told him about the stars and battles she had seen. They did not always agree, but they listened to each other. In the shadows, others watched. The nobles who feared change, the rebels who wanted power, they began to whisper again. This human was not a simple man. The queen was no longer alone. Something new was growing between them. Not just duty, just peace, but something stronger. And soon, the whole empire would feel it. The palace was quiet again, but Jason knew it would not last. After the rebel attack, the air felt tense. Guards stood taller. Eyes followed him more closely. Still, Jason walked the same way, calm and steady. He kept his days simple. He trained in the morning, read in the afternoon, and sometimes spoke with Lyraea at night. One evening, Lyraea called him to the war room. The lights were low, and a map of the galaxy glowed on the table. A red light blinked in one corner. "There is a new threat," Lyraea said. "A warlord from the Zaryth Outer Ring. His name is Kelrose. He says I am weak. He wants to take the throne." Jason listened. He had heard the name before. Kelrose was known for his harsh ways. He ruled his part of the empire with fear. Jason looked at the blinking light. "What will you do?" he asked. Lyraea looked at him. "I will not step down. But some of my own people are afraid. They say I have changed, that I think like a human now." Jason said nothing for a moment. Then he said, "Do they think weakness is peace?" Lyrea smiled a little. "They do not understand peace." A few days later, Kelrose sent a message, challenged the queen to ritual combat. A warrior would fight for her honor. If her champion won, he would leave her rule alone. If he won, he would take control. Lyrea called her best guards, but Jason stepped forward. "Let me fight," he said. The room went silent. Then he shouted against it. He was not Zaryth, was not born of their people. But Lyrea raised her hand. "Why?" she asked him. "Because I am your husband. Because your rule gave peace a chance. And because they need to see that humans are not weak." She looked at him for a long time. Then she said, "Very well." The day of the fight came fast. A wide circle was set in the royal court. All the nobles came. So did Kelrose. He was large, with sharp armor and red eyes, full of hate. Jason stood in plain clothes. He carried no sword, just a short staff. The bell rang. Kelrose charged. Jason dodged, quick like wind. He hit the warlord's leg with the staff. Kelrose roared and swung hard. Jason ducked, rolled, and hit again. This time the warlord fell to one knee. The crowd gasped. The fight lasted 10 minutes. In the end, Jason stood tall, his chest rising with slow breath. Kelrose lay on the ground, unable to rise. Lyrea stepped into the circle. "The fight is over." Kelrose tried to speak, but his voice was weak. "You chose well." After the fight, many Zaryth people began to speak of Jason with respect. They called him the Silent Blade. Lyra smiled when she heard this name. That night, Jason and Lyrea stood on the palace roof. Stars were bright. He looked at her. "You took a risk," he said. "So did you," she replied. Their hands touched. For the first time, Lyrea did not see him as human or outsider. She saw him as a partner. Days passed. Jason started training with the Queen's guards more often. He taught them ways of Earth combat. Lyrea watched. She saw how they followed him, not because they had to, but because they wanted to. One day, Lyra told him, "Let's visit Earth." Jason looked surprised. Why? To show them that we are not just rulers of different worlds, but of one future. He traveled to Earth. The people welcomed them with cheers and music. Jason walked beside Lyrea, hand in hand. Leaders from many places came to meet them. Talks began. Plans were made for shared learning, shared defense. Back on Zaryth Prime, the people spoke of a new age. An age where a human stood beside a queen, not as a symbol, not as a pet, but as a force of change. And far beyond the stars, in a dark part of space, something else was moving. A new enemy. One that did not care for peace or war, its only destruction. But for now, the queen and her warriors stood together, and their story was only beginning. Jason stood on the platform, looking at the stars as they left Earth. The talks had gone well. Leaders from Earth and Zaryth had agreed to work together. Lyrea stood beside him, quiet but pleased. She had seen how humans looked at her with wonder and fear, but when they looked at Jason, they saw hope. That gave her strength. Back on Zaryth Prime, things were changing fast. Training centers opened to teach both human and alien skills. Jason taught soldiers how to move fast, how to fight without heavy armor. He also taught them to think before they act. Lyrea changed too. She no longer ruled from a high seat. She walked among her people, spoke to workers, listened to young students. People began to love her more, not just fear her. But in the far parts of the galaxy, a new threat had come. The Morvax. A dark force that moved without warning. Planets went silent. Ships were lost. No one knew their true face. They attacked with strange machines that fed on energy. A call for help came from a small colony near the Zaryth border. Lyrea sent scouts. Only one returned. His ship was damaged, his eyes full of fear. "They are not like us," he said. "They do not speak. They destroy everything." Jason stood by the queen as she listened. Then he said, "We need to act." Together, Lyrea agreed. She sent messages to Earth and all her allies. A war council was formed. Jason led the planning. He used old maps, new tech, and ideas from both worlds. The first battle took place near the edge of the Empire. Jason led the ground team. Lyrea commanded the fleet. They moved like one mind, human speed and alien power side by side. The Morvax were strong. Their machines moved without sound. They hit hard and fast. But Jason had seen worse. He used tricks from Earth, traps and fast strikes. The enemy was pushed back. After the fight, Lyrea met Jason in the command room. Her eyes were tired, but her voice was steady. They will come again, stronger. Jason nodded. Then we must be ready. They spent days without rest, planning, training, sending help to weak planets. People from Earth and Zaryth trained together. They shared food, stories, and battle lessons. One night, a young soldier came to Jason. "Why do you fight so hard?" he asked. Jason looked at him. "Because peace is not free. Because Lyrea gave me trust. Because this is my home now." The soldier stood tall, and it is mine too. As the Morvax moved closer, the people stood stronger. They followed Jason and Lyrea, not because of fear, but because of belief. Belief that together, they could face anything. And as the sky darkened once more, the Queen and the humans stood side by side, ready for what was to come. The stars above Earth and Zaryth were calm again, but people remembered what had happened. The Morvax had pulled back, their weapon was gone, and both worlds had been saved. Yet no one believed the peace would last forever. Jason healed fast. He walked through the palace halls again, but slower than before. Lyrea stayed close to him, and they often spoke in quiet tones. They had faced death, and now they saw each day as a gift. One morning, children from Earth and Zaryth visited the palace. They asked to meet Jason. He stood in the garden with them, telling simple stories of stars, of ships, and of how being brave didn't mean fighting. It meant choosing what was right even when afraid. Lyrea watched from the balcony. She saw how the children listened, eyes wide. Jason had become more than a soldier. He had become a symbol of hope. Later, Lyrea met with her council. Some old nobles still doubted humans, but now they were quiet. Others had changed. They spoke of Jason with respect. They asked for more Earth training and tools. "We are no longer just Zaryth," Lyrea said. "We are something new." Jason worked with engineers to build new ships that mixed Earth speed with Zaryth design. He trained new units with members from both worlds. These fighters moved better, thought faster, and trusted each other more than before. Peace meetings were held. Many smaller planets came to speak with Jason and Lyrea. They asked to join this new alliance. Jason welcomed them, but he always reminded them this peace must be guarded, not with fear, but with unity. One day, a large gathering took place on a moon between Earth and Zaryth. It was the first council of the two worlds' union. Leaders from both planets signed a new agreement to protect one another, to share, and to grow as one. Jason stood beside Lyrea as the papers were signed. He wore a simple coat, no armor. Lyrea wore her royal robe, but her crown was placed on the table, not on her head. She wanted people to see her not just as a queen, but as a leader like them. After the council, the people danced and sang. Fires lit the dark sky. Jason stood with Lyrea, looking out over the lights. "Do you think it will last?" she asked. "If we keep working for it," he said. Time passed. Jason and Lyrea became a strong team. They made choices together. They traveled to distant colonies. They helped build schools and hospitals. When storms hit farming worlds, they were the first to send help. A statue of them was placed in the middle of the first human Zaryth training camp. Not to show power, but to show that two worlds could stand as one. But not all was calm. Deep in space, old dangers still moved. The Morvax were not gone, only silent. Other alien powers watched the rise of the two worlds with sharp eyes. Jason kept his training sharp. He still woke early, still walked the palace halls. Lyrea kept her council close. She listened more, spoke with care, and led with heart. Together, they were not perfect. They argued at times. They saw things in different ways, but they never stopped trusting each other. One evening, they stood again on the palace roof. The stars above were bright. "They once called me the Star Shield," Jason said. "Now they call us the Shield of Two Stars," Lyrea answered. Jason smiled. "Good name, but names don't matter," she said. "What matters is what we leave behind." And they knew what they had started would grow. A future where peace was more than a dream. A future where human and alien stood together, not in fear, but in strength. And in that quiet night, the queen and her warrior looked up, knowing their story would be told for many years. It's not because of war, but because they had shown a better way.